Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we talk about all things fandom on this channel. And we talk about them in a positive way. If that's something that appeals to you, you've come to the right place. We're so glad you stopped by. And today also happens to be Sci-Fi Sunday on this channel, where we talk about all things sci-fi, fantasy, and comic book related. And today, we have to talk about Superman. I thought it would be fun, since I did just put up my review of the new Superman movie, to kind of rank all the Superman movies from worst to best. So here is my ranking of all the Superman movies. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so when it comes to Superman movies, Superman is so iconic. He is one of my all-time favorite characters in comic books, and I could watch any of the Superman movies and be utterly enthralled. We did a video ranking every Superman in the movies on this channel, but today we're gonna kind of rank the movies, and I'm not including the serial movie in this one, and I'm not including the television pilot movie in this one like I did before. Instead, we're gonna be focusing on the modern Superman movies. So from the Reeve era all the way to the Corn Sweat era, that's what we're going to be focusing on in this video. But those movies, the other two, that little pilot from George Reeves and the other one, the serial one, I urge you to check those out if you can, because those are still very good movies to watch. So here it is, from the one I like the least to the one I like the best. And our least favorite is Superman Returns from 2006. Now, this movie, when it came out, it had that nostalgia vibe. It was an okay movie. It legitimately did try to capture the Reeve era of Superman. It did. However, where it fell flat was that it just wasn't it. And a lot of plot points I didn't like in the movie, and I still sort of don't like those plot points. And even though it's a movie that I own, even though it's a movie I will watch over and over again, it's just not at the top of my list by any means. And part of the reason is that a lot of the characters in the movie sort of don't need to be there. The Lex Luthor in that movie is brilliant. He really is. He comes across as evil. Brandon Routh does an amazing job as Superman. That's not the problem. The problem is that I never really cared for that Lois Lane. I didn't like the concept of Superman having a child. And yeah, he has a child in the comic books, but this felt off. This felt odd. But it's still an enjoyable movie, and I urge you to check it out if you've never seen it. Who knows, it may be your favorite Superman movie. Next on my list is Man of Steel from 2013. Now, whoa, because I know that this is a very controversial one, because this is Zack Snyder's dream child, Superman. This is the one that a lot of fans still wanted to come back for the new movies. Let me say, Henry Cavill, Superman, awesome, okay? He is an awesome Superman. The problem with it came with the script itself. It came with that darkness. Everything had to be so dark in DC, and that was a lot of the problem. Want to know what got the DCEU actually canceled, and actually to where now we have the DCU? It is in fact all of the darkness in the films. All of the superheroes were these edgy, realistic, ground level characters. Superman, in the movie, he seemed very angry all the time, and very much rightly so in the world that was created for him. Now, that being said, I enjoyed the film. I didn't hate the film. There are some things I didn't like the snapping of General Zod's neck. I felt was something that wasn't needed. Yeah, there we go. I didn't like that. There's a difference between comic book violence and just something that felt like the character wouldn't have done it. Superman doesn't like to kill things. And this movie had Superman positioned in a way where he was put in a scenario where he had to kill some people. He had to kind of let citizens die and all of this. And it was a cool movie, and the whole thing was cool. It just kind of, for me, made it one of the weaker Superman movies, even though I enjoy it and continue to watch it to this day. Next up on my list of movies is Superman 4: The Quest for Peace from 1987. Now, this movie is the one that brought us The Nuclear Man. This movie is great. It suffers from a lot of bad editing. If you want to talk about bad editing, this movie had a lot of scenes that were just apparently cut out of it, and the movie does suffer for it. But overall, it is still a Superman movie. You get the line in the movie from Lois Lane saying that Clark Kent and Superman are legitimately the last Boy Scout, and that's essentially the truth. That's something that you'll hear me quote on this channel a lot, that Superman is basically the last Boy Scout. He is this nice guy, and you can't go away from that as a character. Now, it had the Nuclear Man, and the Nuclear Man is very, very vicious in the movie. He almost kills Superman, and the scenes with him in it were great. Just a lot of the other stuff fell apart. A lot of the other stuff doesn't hold up quite well, but it is political also. It deals with the arms issue and Superman saying, hey, Krypton was destroyed by a nuclear weapon. I'm not going to let that happen to you guys. Essentially, that's what he was telling them. And I didn't have a problem with it. I still don't have a problem with that being the narrative. I just didn't necessarily feel as though that movie was the best. That whole thing with Superman going to stop the nuclear weapons all across the world was necessarily something that was plot-worthy, especially when the only reason we got that plot was so that Lex Luthor could build the Nuclear Man, which is essentially a clone of Superman with a little bit of Lex Luthor thrown in. So yes, that was the plot of the movie. It's still enjoyable. It's still a Superman movie. It's still one that I watch on a regular basis. Spoiler, every single one of these movies are great in their own right, in their own way. I don't believe that there is any bad Superman movie. In reality, I would watch all of them over and over again. Next up is Superman 3. And Superman 3 is from 1983. And Superman 3 leaned into the comedy a lot. It was sort of a more slapstick than all of the other movies. And the early Superman movies felt like comic books. They did. They felt like comic books. They were very comic book accurate in some ways and inaccurate in a lot of other ways. But they felt like you were in a comic book universe. A lot of bright, shiny things. Superman was Superman. And even in this movie, that holds true. However, this movie suffered from a number of things behind the scenes. But essentially, it resulted in Gene Hackman not wanting to come back, and Lois Lane not being a big part of the movie, and a lot of things like that sort of happened because of the behind the scenes stuff. Now, when you look at it that way, it stands to reason that they needed a new enemy. So they got a new enemy, and they had to give this new enemy a henchman that was kind of smart, that was kind of cool. And the henchman is kind of a Brainiac type of villain, and it's played by none other than Richard Pryor. And that's essentially what this movie was. He can basically hack into computers. He's very ground level villain, but he also kind of knew the score. And because of that, he was able to almost stop Superman through a lot of crazy events. The movie isn't bad, and it has a lot of great laughs and a few fight scenes, but overall, this is probably the most forgettable Superman movie there. The reason I rank it above the others is because Christopher Reeve in this movie shines. And even though Richard Pryor is playing probably the worst villain ever in the movies, he still somehow manages to make me laugh every single time I see this movie in a way that just makes it better than some of the others on this list. Now, I know it's a bit controversial to say, how do I rank this above something like Man of Steel? Man of Steel, like I said, suffers from that realism, and I don't want my Superman to always feel real, so this movie does sort of get above that a bit. And how does this go above The Quest for Peace? Well, the editing in this movie is a lot better, and the action scenes, when you do have action scenes, are entertaining. It's still the most forgettable one, but the editing, the story is kind of blah, but then the performances really enhance this movie. Next up is Superman from 2025. That's right, this is where this one ranks in the system. Because, yes, this one has some problems. I'm not even gonna lie and say this is a perfect movie. It's not a perfect movie. It does, however, take elements from the comic books and thus take elements that seem like they're from the other movies, and it does it in a better way. Also, this movie moves wicked fast. The movie moves so fast that sometimes the biggest complaint is that you don't have time to catch your breath. But I don't have a problem with not having time to catch my breath, especially when there are a lot of Easter eggs in the background of this movie that I still have to go back and watch this movie over again just to find these Easter eggs. And that's intriguing too. That's something that the older movies didn't necessarily have, as thousands and thousands upon thousands of Easter eggs for us to find. And it's fun to try to do that. But this movie delivers on the acting. All the characters fit so nice. They all have such wonderful things to do in the movie, and it's fast-paced. So that's why this movie is where it is in the ranking. Now, next up is Superman from 1978. Now, Superman from 1978, a lot of people look at it as the definitive Superman movie, and in reality, it kind of is. However, here's the thing. Christopher Reeve came into this movie and he made Superman his own. He delivered on Superman in such an epic way that every Superman movie afterwards is constantly compared to him. What people don't remember about this movie is just how campy it was. I was rewatching this movie not too long ago, but for some reason, in my mind this year, I suddenly realized how campy this movie was. And it's not a bad thing. It really isn't. The movie itself being campy and sort of funny, you still feel like you are in a comic book movie. And it works so well. And the plot is very great. It's just Superman coming to Earth, learning about Lex Luthor trying to stop Superman. Essentially, this is kind of the movie to watch to get you to like Superman if you've never been a fan. I've seen videos where people watch Superman for the first time, this movie, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, wait a minute, Superman's kind of cool. I feel like the new 2025 movie could potentially have that in it as well. But for me, the number one Superman movie is Superman 2 from 1980. And the reason is that Superman set up these three villains. And in Superman 2, we get to see these three villains come down and escape the Phantom Zone, get to Earth, and they almost single-handedly destroy Superman. The movie has a great pacing to it. It is sort of not as action-packed as the new movie, as the 2025 movie, but it delivers in every way. It is part of the reason that Man of Steel ranks where it is, in fact. Now, how? This is why. Because to me, General Zod will always be Terrence Stamp. And if you don't know why, you need to check out this movie, because Terrence Stamp is so menacing as General Zod that there is no other person, no other actor who could ever jump into that role and do that role as much justice as he did. And the comic books before that, General Zod was nothing like this character. It basically brought this character in an entirely new way to film, and it's not very comic book accurate. And there's been some interpretations in the comic now that are closer to this version of General Zod. And when I look at General Zod, even in the new Suicide Squad comic books and all of that, it is still very much this Terrence Stamp General Zod. And there's a reason for that. And then, you know, the villains in this movie work. And Lex Luthor is brilliant in this movie as well. Now, this is the first time we see Lex Luthor go to the Fortress of Solitude to try to learn how to destroy Superman. In the newer movie, we know he kind of does that, and it sort of is played kind of the same way, but there's been numerous times in comic books where people have gone to the Fortress of Solitude to try to figure out how to destroy Superman. In fact, in every single television thing other than the George Reeves version, there's always been a character that somehow makes it to the Fortress of Solitude and ends up with ideas on how to kill Superman. That's kind of become what it is. But this movie is great because the acting's great, the timing's great. Everything about this movie makes it my favorite of all time. Now that, my friends, is how I rank these movies. I hope it was fun for you. What's your least favorite Superman movie? And what is your favorite? And what are some of your favorite scenes from some of these movies? What does your list look like from worst to best? Is your list close to mine, completely different than mine? None of that matters because we are all friends. We are all fans at the same virtual water cooler talking about the fandoms we love. And I want to hear your thoughts on it. I want to hear what your favorite Superman movie is, what your least favorite one is, and let's have a conversation. Make sure you're leaving us that comment in the comment box below, letting us know what your rankings of the best to worst Superman movies are. And share this video with all of your friends so that they can do the same. Make sure you're hitting that like button. It's free. It helps the channel and we really appreciate it. Miko says we need more subscribers, and look at this cute little face. You don't want to disappoint Miko. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell while you're down there so you don't miss a single video we do. Then friends, at the end of the day, I know it, you know it, and Miko knows it. Fandom is family.